started. Right, thanks. Tony's recording this. So that's good. So just welcome everybody. This is our Siska monthly meeting. We haven't had one for a few months, and this one is by Zoom again. We had hoped that we would be able to have an in-person meeting. We were actually quite well along in planning it, and then we decided that things were just too iffy. And so we're back to Zoom. It may work out in October or not. It's hard to say right now, isn't it? Things are very much up in the air. So until we feel confident, we'll stick with this, I guess. And but anyway, we can do a lot of things with Zoom, which, as we found out, which is nice. One of them is, and I'll introduce her a bit later, is to have somebody share their knowledge and their screen with us. And I'll introduce Marilyn Lambert later. You'll see her picture up there on the screen. If those of you who haven't muted yourselves, if you would do that, because there's a bit of feedback I'm hearing, so that would help us manage the sound a bit. If you want to unmute yourself, just go ahead and pipe up. And that's kind of the next order of business beyond welcome. And I hope we have some folks who are new to the club on the call. It's sort of real hard to welcome people, but I've been leading paddles, as many of you have, I know, and met some of our newer members, and some really great people are joining Siska. We apparently, according to Dave O, we're at, did you say 420, Dave?
425.
425. So yeah, quite amazing. Good thing when they're not all on Zoom, because they wouldn't fit. But anyway, we'll try to figure out how to best work with everybody who's interested in sea kayaking in Victoria. And I'm not surprised why, because if you were anywhere near the water today, you'll know that it was a beautiful day on the water. And some of us were able to get out and paddle. I was with a group that went to Chatham Discovery, others along the Gordon Head coastline, and probably lots of others because it was gorgeous out there. So I just wanted to mention a few things, and I think some others have some announcements. And I'll just say right now, if you haven't thought of it but are now, just pipe up if you have something you want to bring to people's attention. We don't have everybody here, obviously, but it's a group of our members that probably a way to pass on communication. I wanted to just note for everybody that we had our picnic on September 11th, the Saturday, and great success. Jane Jasic is not on the call. Maybe she's still recovering. I don't know. No, that was a joke. She was fine. The whole picnic was a great success, and everybody who wanted to got out on the water. It wasn't the best day for it, but they got out there anyway. It did rain a bit, but it didn't dampen spirits at all. So that was fun. And we also introduced the Siska Tattoo. So I think Roger was going to give us a little demo there. If you can see Roger's bicep. Yeah, there you go. That's Siska Tattoo. We have, I don't know how, oh, he's got them two of them, matching pair. If you're interested in, this is a temporary tattoo. If you're interested in, sort of branding yourself with such a popular logo, can be done. I had mine put like right on my forehead on the day, and I thought that was pretty cool, but Katrina wasn't very impressed by it. So a little bit of scrubbing, and that came off a few days later. Anyway, so tattoos, we'll figure out a way to share that with everybody as time goes by. Now, I wanted to just give it to Deb, because this is a little bit complicated and I want to kind of get it out of the way. Debbie, who is, as you see, in a fancy blue looking hat there. Some of us are wearing hats because BJ, who we saw earlier today, said everybody should wear a hat. And now BJ has a hat. Okay, good. So hats are optional, but actually Debbie wanted to talk about buying some hats, Siska hats, and maybe marketing them and getting some ideas from you. So go ahead, Debbie, and I'll try and figure out how to share my screen and show what you're talking about.
Okay, So since I've been director at large, I thought, okay, maybe I could help welcome some of the new members or people that need to have a Siska branded item. And so Alan's wearing a ball cap and Victor's wearing ball caps. And so through Out of the Blue, we can get ball caps for about $20 each. And that's the one that I'm thinking of. It doesn't have the Siska logo on it yet, but it's the one that has reflective parts. It's sort of a runner's hat with the chevrons on it, which I thought was going to be a nice option. So that can be in either black or navy. So for about $20. And then Alan, I sent up another picture because we're thinking it's wintry. And this is called the Jeep cap. And basically it's something that you could wear in the winter under your hood. And there's a bit of a visor for sun protection and keeps your ears warm and could go under a helmet as well. So that's about $10. So I'm going to put the pricing information and the ordering information in the newsletter and send out a blast. So we'll order those in October. So if you want to give one as a Christmas present, you'll have it, or just keep your ears warm, whatever.
Yeah, what is the cap made of? Is it polyester or is it wool or what is it?
It's acrylic. The knitted one is acrylic, and the other, so it's quick dry, and the other one is just regular hat material, polyester, I think.
Debbie, are you open to suggestions?
Sure.
How about a nice hat that's waterproof, wide brim, something like the one Ocean River Sports used to have, but something that we could wear in inclement weather. I'm never in that kind of weather, mind you, but it'll keep the sun off me when I'm out in the sun.
Okay, sort of a sun rain hat. Okay, I'll see if they've got something, and I'll get a price on that. Thank you. Okay.
Deb, who are you using?
It's been Out of the Blue of Quadra and the Galloping Goose.
Right, those are the people that I've ordered stuff through before, and they're pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can see the cap that Victor has. The printing for Siska is below the paddler, which compared to Alan's, if he turns it around, it's the paddler is going through the lettering. So I don't know if we want to vote, but I just think it looks a lot cleaner to have the writing underneath. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to be able to see the logo. It's kind of a cool logo. By the way, does anybody remember who came up with that logo?
It was somebody that Susan Duhamel knew and has lost contact with, I understand.
I thought it was a Siska member because there was a competition, just a loose competition, one for the Siska name and also for the logo. That's how I remember.
Wasn't it Mike that came up with it? Not Mike Jackson?
The one who does the rolling in the pool?
Michael.
Sorry, didn't hear you.
You cut
Mike
out.
Eggleston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't see him doing that, but maybe. Okay, so that's the hat thing. And just maybe you can let Debbie know if you have any other ideas. She's definitely open to suggestions. And there's been some interest in doing it. I personally lose hats at an amazing pace. So I need to refresh my stock periodically, and maybe you're the same.
So is there going to be anything more than hats with the club logo happening again?
No, not for me. If you want to do it, Jenny, go ahead.
Yeah, these things always take somebody who's going to take on the organization. So if there is interest in other apparel, it can be done. Some of us have, jackets and rash guards and so forth, but that would be another task. So I'll throw that out. If anybody's interested in putting out a call for other apparel, I think we've used Out of the Blue for that as well. And it's kind of reasonable price and comes, but it's a bit of a hassle handling it and, dealing with the money and people and their preferences. So if somebody's interested, great. Maybe contact.
I've ordered stuff before. They've had a minimum order. I think it's 10 or 12.
Yeah.
Well,
So Siska underwear.
Oh,
Okay.
All right, not touching that. Okay, we are going to, I'll just remind people that we will have a prize draw at the end of the meeting. I think that's when we're doing it. Am I right, Debbie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I haven't got the match yet. Okay,
Yeah, okay, so we'll have a giveaway prize draw for some piece of safety / kayaking equipment later in the meeting. Oh, and one other item that was brought forward to me, and Jenny may want to add to this. We talked about meetings, the difficulty, uncertainty about holding meetings. Of course, the same is true about our Christmas party, which sadly we weren't able to hold last year because of COVID. We were really hoping to hold it this year. At the present time, the rules around holding indoor dining experiences limit the numbers to 50. And you must stay at your table. You must be masked until you get in, and then until you're at your table. And then you can eat obviously without the mask, but then there's no mingling or moving between tables. So there's some restrictions that would apply if indeed those are the only restrictions in place when we get to December. So we're really kind of monitoring that a bit still because it's, as I said, the numbers have been going up and down a little bit, but it's not looking really great at this point. So there have been some thoughts about other things that might be done if we're unable to hold a Christmas party, or maybe even as well as a Christmas party, sort of take advantage of paddling, winter paddling, of course, maybe pep it up a bit with some refreshments provided, and maybe doing this around the Christmas time or period before that, as we have with the party. We'll see. And if you have suggestions about that, I'd love to hear from you, or contact Jenny as well. And Jenny, did you want to say any more than I have already about that?
No, I think you've covered it. The maximum 50 is 50% of what the rural Vic can hold. And so they're only allowed to go to 50 at the moment. That's government mandate.
Right.
So they won't know for some time. And I've told them we need a 2 to 3 week lead up. So.
Right. Just back to the hats briefly, Dawn, if you're looking at the chat at all, and I put something in the chat, which I'll mention in a minute. Dawn said, are there any cotton hats? So avoid having polyester in the water when they're lost. Who loses hats? I don't know who loses hats. Anyway, yeah, he's right there. So waterproof hats are nice, but a Tilly is a lot cooler. You can take a look at what Dawn says there. So something to bear in mind about hats. All right. Now I'll just ask again, is there anybody who would like to pass out any information about that's going on with the club or our kayaking activities?
Here and look at Alan. He's got on his red glasses and his cap on backwards.
Well, I found with the peak that I can't see anybody. This is much better. Maybe we could put the logo on the back as well. Okay, well, hearing none, I will move on and say again that we are delighted to have with us tonight Marilyn Lambert. Marilyn's been sitting patiently listening to this silliness. Actually, Marilyn was asking me, I'm not sure about your group. Apparently she was maybe concerned that we might be a bit rough, a bit hard to talk to. And I said, oh, no, not to worry. We're very nice people, and we're going to be very friendly, because Marilyn's talking about something which does come up. And I was with a fairly large group today, Marilyn. About almost 20 of us went to the Chatham Discovery Group and ended up at Rudland Bay on the beach for lunch and came back. And we went around the Ecological Reserve Islands that are on the east side there. So I wanted to mention to you, by the way, that there were 25 bags, big white bags on, I guess it's Griffin, I'm not sure. Yeah, anyway, obviously somebody's helping to clean up, so that's great. But it was a beautiful day. We paddled around, and Marilyn is, if you had a chance to look at it before, and we're doing this partly because she's a wonderful local resource for us as a warden for the Ecological Reserves off Oak Bay. but it's the 50th anniversary of the Ecological Reserve Program in British Columbia. And there are many ecological reserves, which I'm sure she'll go into in some detail. I won't do that myself, but I wanted to mention that she's been doing this, exploring these Oak Bay Islands since 1968. You know, and I don't know how you maintain that youthful appearance, Marilyn, because I can do my math and that's a long time. Anyway, you should know that there are a few people on here who have been paddling to those islands and only those islands since the pandemic began. Where's David? I saw him sign in earlier, Alex Breiker. They're such beautiful places. It's such a lovely, there's David, yeah. So these are guys who've become experts on the whole Chatham Discovery Archipelago. And I'm sure they're going to be listening closely to what you have to say about the ecological reserves. And we also have people who have been championing ecological reserves to people like me who were perhaps not too knowledgeable about it for some time, but we're very happy to have you here tonight and talking about it. So without any more preamble, I'll let Marilyn take it away. Okay, Marilyn, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Alan. I will talk about those white bags in a little while, and I'm just so delighted to hear that your people have been paddling in my island for a very long time. First of all, though, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that I'm on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. And the islands that we're going to talk about now are the heart of their territory. Can you see this? Are you sharing sorry, are you sharing your screen?
I'm not sharing mine, but you could share yours.
Oh, sorry. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to say right away that I'm technically not savvy, so just hang with me for a minute here.
Right. Looks like something's happening here. There we go.
Okay. Oh, I thought I just had to start. Anyway, so here we are again. I apologize for the tech unsavviness that's about to unfold. So yes, we are on the traditional territory of the Songhees people. So this is the 50th year of the founding of the Ecological Reserves program in British Columbia. And some of you may not have even heard of ecological reserves or know that there are several reserves in the southern Vancouver Island area. We are indeed fortunate to live in Victoria and have 3 of these special places in our own backyard. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of history about the Ecological Reserve program. This lovely fellow is Vladimir Krajina, and the Ecological Reserve program morphed out of a dream by Dr. Krajina. He was a professor in the botany department at UBC. Dr. Krajina had an encyclopedic knowledge of plants, their distribution and ecology. This knowledge led to his major contribution to Canadian botany, the ecologically based system of vegetation classification known as biogeoclimatic ecosystems, or BEC zones. These zones are the foundation for any regional natural history study and provide immense value as a baseline to assess the effects of climate change. Here in Victoria, we live in the coastal Douglas fir zone. A mild climate gives this area some of the province's rarest vegetation, which is seriously threatened by growing human settlement. In 1965, Dr. Krajina and colleagues met with Ray Williston, then Minister of Lands, Forests and Water Resources, and put forward the idea of creating ecological reserves to protect specific examples of BEC zones in the province. The Ecological Reserve Act was introduced in the legislature on March 17, 1971, and received royal assent on April 2nd, bringing it into law. So that's all my reading about Dr. Krajina. He was an amazing man. He produced a lot of the a lot of students, his grad students, went on to be leaders in botany in British Columbia. So I've just put up a map here in case you aren't familiar with ecological reserves. This map is produced by a group I'm involved with called the Friends of Ecological Reserves. We've been around for about 40 years and we support the Warden program. We have, I think, more than half of the reserves in the province have a volunteer warden looking after them because, you know, as you can see from this map, some of these areas are pretty remote and it's just not possible for BC Park staff to monitor them all the time. So the very first ecological reserve was established at Cleveland Island, which is just off of Tofino. Some of you may have paddled in that area. It's a little island that has a massive seabird colony. I think there's 12 species of seabirds that nest there. So, and the last one, number 154, was up here near Smithers. It's called Debt Sand, and it's set aside to protect rare old growth junipers. It was established in 2009. So since that time, we have lost, I think, five ecological reserves have been taken over by various other forms of government, wrapped up with national parks. So no new ecological reserves have been added since that time. So Friends of Ecological Reserves has been trying to work with BC Parks to get some more reserves established. We have 7 ready to go. All the paperwork's done, but they just cannot pass through provincial parks. Well, it's doesn't fall under provincial parks anymore. It's the Glenrod, the forest lands, natural resources. Anyway, it's just a bureaucratic nightmare, but we keep trying. So well, I'm going to talk about the 3 reserves that are just off the Victoria waterfront to start out with. But before I do that, I'd just like to mention the Victoria Harbour Migratory Bird Sanctuary. You know, all of these things are interrelated to protect areas locally, specifically in this case for migrating birds. But the reserve, you can see it goes from Portage Inlet to 10 Mile Point, which is about 30 kilometers. And I'm sure most of you paddle in this area. So I think you've had a talk by Jacques Sirois, who is the driver behind the Victoria Harbour Migratory Bird Sanctuary. And you've probably in your walks along the waterfront seen these signs at various places. And it is a lot more than Victoria Harbour and a lot more than birds. You know, we celebrate the return of the herring up in the gorge, returning humpback whales, the black Brandt population is increasing. So there's some good stories here. So, and in 2023, this migratory bird sanctuary is going to be 100 years old, which is pretty amazing. It was originally established to control market hunting, mostly to stop people from shooting at each other across the Victoria Harbour, hunting for geese. Anyway, Jacques Sirois, if you have not met him, he's an amazing fellow. He can make a mud puddle seem interesting. And he's just so severely dedicated to the migratory bird sanctuary. So look for some things coming up in the future around the sanctuary. So the ecological reserves I'm going to talk to you about today are the Trial Islands, Trial Islands, the Oak Bay Islands, and a little bit about 10 Mile Point. The reserve at 10 Mile Point is really interesting, but it's mostly below the surface. So here we go. So we all know Trial Island, just off the Victoria waterfront. It's a lighthouse there that was established in the early 1900s. And it was made into an ecological reserve in 1990. Oak Bay Municipality had a proposal forward to put a sewage treatment plant in the middle of the island. And those people in the know at the time, botanists from the museum, had been out there and knew that there were more rare plants there than just about anywhere else in British Columbia. So with a great deal of lobbying, Trial Island became an ecological reserve in 1990. So as you paddle past there, I'm sure you're aware that there are these beautiful open meadows on the island that harbor these rare plants. Matt Fairbarns is the warden for the Oak Bay, or for Trial Island. Matt is a plant ecologist and he's been a botanist for a very long time. And he's retired now, but still does a lot of work. And his passion is Trial Island. He's clearing the invasive plants out there, off of there, to protect these rare and endangered plants. So you could, I'm not going to talk a lot about Trial Island because it's Matt's thing. He knows the plants inside out, but just to give you an idea of what's there. Oops, wrong way. Golden paintbrush is a red listed plant that only occurs in a few places around here. So there is a population on Trial Island. Can Luke permeate for match turn off his light? There's some feedback happening. Anyway.
Could everyone turn their mics off besides Marilyn, please? Down in the bottom left, there's a little mic, then you can shut them down, mute it.
Thank you. That was just kind of distracting. Anyway, so here's a golden paintbrush. It grows in these little maritime meadows on some of the rocky islands, and in the Victoria area, it only grows on Trial Island and Alpha Island in the Oak Bay Islands Ecological Reserve. Another rare plant is the bear paw sanicle, barefoot sanicle, footsteps of spring. It has several names, but it grows on Trial Island, and it also grows on Alpha Island and a couple places along the waterfront, like the Chinese cemetery. So this is Matt, and I'm not sure if you can see here. He's just like a kid in the candy store with this one. This is a tiny little plant here called Victoria's Owl Clover. And Matt discovered it in 2007, I think. It had been overlooked and as you can imagine, it's so tiny, and had been identified as another species. But on closer investigation, Matt found that this was a new plant in our area called the Victoria Owl Clover. So it's a lovely little plant in the Orthocarpus family that just grows on Trial Island. There's a couple of places, I think there's a little population at Cattle Point and also at Gonzales Point. So one thing that's become apparent on these islands is that the invasive plants are taking over, and Scotch broom is one of the worst. So we've had an invasive control program going on for, well, since, I don't know, we've always been picking broom off of Alpha and Griffin, but on Trial Island, the project has been going continuously since about 2005. So this is a mountain made completely of broom that has been taken off off of the Trial Island meadows, opening up the meadows so these wildflowers can survive and thrive. So those white bags you were seeing are like these. So you go along, you cut down your invasives, put them in the bag, and in this case, carry them over to Broom Hill and dump them. And that's, oh gosh, it's huge. If you paddle by there, you've probably seen seen this thing. Anyway, that's just the way they're handling broom. Ivy is another invasive plant that's caused a lot of problem, choking out the wildflowers. This is the boathouse on Trial Island that had been completely covered in ivy. We had a crew over there one day that taking the ivy off. And if you've ever tried to remove ivy from anywhere, you know how difficult it is. Anyway, many hands make light work. So the ivy's bagged up into these big white bags and then put on the shore, and the parks boat comes over and takes the bags back to Oak Bay, either Cattle Point or the marina down by the boat ramp there. The crew this day was, it's a young people's work. So here are the bags. These are the white bags that you saw over on Griffin today. Alan?
Yes, that's right. Exactly like that.
Okay, so that's what's happening there. So moving along, we'll go over to Alpha. Alpha and Griffin are my favorite two areas. It could be anywhere over here. So they've been set aside to protect the wildflower meadows there. They're part of the Oak Bay Islands Ecological Reserve. That Oak Bay Islands includes Jemmy Jones at the mouth of Cadre Bay, Griffin and Alpha, and also Great Chain Islands. So Alpha Island also has golden paintbrush. It has a smaller population than on Trial Island, and every couple of years we do a survey, putting these little pegs and then count the flowering clusters. So the population has really started to decline over the last couple of years, which is a bit disturbing. So it just native or non-native grasses are taking over these meadows. So we're working on removing some of these things that are impeding the growth of these rare plants. Bear paw sanicle also occurs over on Alpha, and it has a host of other rare plants as well. And then we'll move over to Griffin. Griffin's my favorite. Griffin has the largest concentration of this is California buttercup. So California buttercup grows in a few other places as well, but it has the largest concentration of California buttercup is on Griffin Island. So it's unusual, unlike your common Western buttercup that has 5 petals. These California buttercups have up to 20 petals. So we've counted those before too, and those numbers are coming down also. Purple sanicle is another plant. I've just discovered this one about 5 years ago on Griffin. So it's really interesting, just what you can find there once you've removed some of the invasives. There's a lovely meadow of chocolate lily and some genetic mutants, this white chocolate lily that was about a meter tall and had 6 or 7 blooms on it. So there was a lot of work done over the last few years on Griffin Island. We're trying to get rid of the broom so the native plants have a chance to thrive. So it involves getting a crew together. And you can see how extensive this broom patch is. It's really rewarding work though. You can cut a stem of broom and clear a pretty large area. So we piled it up on tarps and took it over and piled it on the beach. And it was so amazing to go. So we do the broom removal usually in August when Parks Branch has their boat down. And it was really rewarding going back the next spring and seeing the camas coming up through some of the dead blackberry and broom that we've taken out. And then the meadows are getting restored too. And you know, every year I think, okay, we've got all the flowering broom off this year. So, the next year I go back and there's more. So broom seeds are viable in the soil for, well, probably 50 years or more. So it's, you know, keep the flowering broom down to eliminate any more seeds going in the seed bank. And I know Matt is pretty close to having extinguished the seed bank over on Trial Island, but every once in a while there's a broom plant that pops its head up. So the next area, we're just going to move over here through the forested area. Oh, first of all, I should just mention that once you get all the big flowering broom off, you have to go back and be on your hands and knees and pick through the grass, and you come up with these teeny tiny little, this is what we're getting now. So a lot of work, and it's going to be a continuing project for a very long time. So now moving over to the area, the riparian area here on the island, you can see this is blackberry and ivy that when we finished with the big broom, we started to tackle the blackberry and the ivy. And this is just, you know, get a bunch of friends to go over when the parks boat is available and we pick away at it. And then it just became unbelievably difficult. It's a huge project. I just tried to get in there and take the ivy off this oak tree. It took me 2 days to get through the blackberry and get in so I could cut the ivy away from the oak because it was strangling this lovely old oak. Anyway, Matt, bless his heart, Matt Fairbarns from Trial Island is really good at getting funding to remove alien species from these little islands. So he was able to get a grant and actually hire people. That he had a crew of 12 people going over every day for 3 weeks. And you can see how much he's done, or that crew has done. It's just been an amazing thing. So now we're going over to Jemmy Jones. Jemmy Jones is a lovely little island just on the mouth of Cadver Bay. Haven't found any really rare plants there. It's just a lovely meadow of camas and sea blush. And the sea blush there is the largest flowers I've ever seen. You know, in some meadows in Victoria, the sea blush may be no bigger than a pea or a bean. And over on Jemmy Jones, they're as big as a golf ball and some even as big as a tennis ball. I think the soil is really rich there because there's a lot of geese nesting there. So on Jemmy Jones, there's another patch of broom that we've removed all the flowering plants. So, well, and we'll go back again next year and get any late bloomers. So now we're heading to the Great Chain Island and the Chain Islets. This is a very interesting place. From a distance, it doesn't look like much, but when you get closer, there's a lot of stuff happening here. So Great Chain Island and Chain Islets is part of the Oak Bay Islands Ecological Reserve, but it's also part of the important bird area project. So this is like a nationwide project that has these areas set aside, like Sydney Channel is one area locally, Roberts Bay, Boundary Bay in Vancouver is another. So this is where an area where a lot of birds congregate. So originally Chain Island was set aside as or noted for an important bird area because it had a large population of seabirds nesting there, gulls and cormorants and things like that, and also a really important overwintering area for ducks and cormorants and migrating birds coming through, some of the sea ducks that might migrate north and south. So black oyster catcher, most of you, any of you that have paddled around the shores here, familiar with this bird, you often see him before you hear them, or hear them before you see them. So they nest on the little gravel beaches on a lot of these islands, and they're really susceptible to people landing on these shores of these little islands because the oyster catcher lays its egg in a little scrape. So just above the high tide line, puts together some limpet shells and makes a little cup and lays a couple of eggs, and they're almost invisible. They're so well camouflaged, and it's really easy to not see the nest, and a lot of them have been destroyed by people not knowing, going on these beaches. So Great Chain Island has a population of glaucous winged gulls nesting there, and the last census there were 1,500 pairs nesting. That was in 2009, and we've just looked in the old days. I worked at the museum in the 70s, and we had a banding project going on for 4 years. So this meant we would go over there just after the birds started nesting, when the eggs and sometimes chicks were in the nest, and there'd be 12 people walking across the island, counting how many nests and how many eggs in the nest or how many chicks. So it was really disruptive. And just the last couple of years has started looking at doing those surveys with drone, and the important bird area people have just hired a technician for this past summer to go through the drone footage and see how many nests are there. Anyway, so it's a good thing for the gulls, but they're not going to be disturbed like that anymore. The big news on Great Chain Island is the cormorant colony. So this is a double-crested cormorant, one of the 3 species of cormorants that we have in this area. Pelagic cormorants and Brandt's cormorants are the other 2. So when I first started going to Great Chain Island with the museum it would be 1974, there were no double-crested cormorants nesting on Great Chain Island at all. So they started nesting there, and then in 1981 there were 100 nests. 1988 there were 575 nests. And then the colony started to collapse in 1993. You can see we're down to 340. The colony peaked around 1990 at 680 pairs of double-crested cormorants nesting there. And so 2001, 105 nests. And there hasn't been a cormorant reared off that island since 2007. So that's a huge decline in the population. And right now, paddling by, you may see these nest towers. There's about 16 nest towers left. They're amazing structures. When they're active, they're about, maybe 4 feet high. And they're very intricate. It's a good portrait of the marine ecosystem locally. Every nest has polypro rope and bits of plastic sticking out of them. anyway, you know, it's hard to say what has caused that decline. Interest, well, just draw a comparison that the whale watching industry in Victoria has started ramping up right about 1990. I'm not saying that's they're responsible, but you know, on a slow whale watching day, the whale watching boats are often in the Chain Islands area. Bald eagles is another possibility. Since the DDT was banned in the mid-70s, the bald eagle population has exploded, and there's quite a few nests through Chatham and Discovery and also along the Oak Bay waterfront. And I've seen them fly over to that colony and disturb the birds nesting there. You know, they fly over and often would land on the very top nests, and the cormorants and the gulls would be flying around the colony like mad. So whenever the adults are off the nest like that, it leaves the eggs and chicks vulnerable to predation from, well, there's always northwestern crows or American crows now patrolling on a seabird colony, and gulls will get into anybody's nest. So yeah, it's a combination of things. And it's interesting to look at Mandarty Island, which is just off Sydney. I've been doing a cormorant survey there every summer now for the last, I don't know, 5 years or more. And the cormorant colony there seems to be fairly stable. So, you know, it's Mandarty Island isn't that far away, maybe 12 kilometers. But so maybe fish, I don't know. Anyway, it's one of those mysteries of nature. And there's a large population of harbor seals through those islands too. It's always nice in the summertime to see a fresh crop of pups. These harbor seals provide a meal for the transient killer whales. So the big whales are doing very well in our area. I was out the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and there were several whales going past the Alpha Griffin area, and the whale watching boats were all around them. But the whales were in that area for, they were well over an hour and a half, just going along the reefs, picking off seals as they went by. Now I think, okay, now we're gonna go to 10 Mile Point. So the 10 Mile Point Ecological Reserve is just off Smuggler's Cove there, and there's not much going on in the upland, but BC Parks has got a long-term ecological monitoring project there. So what they've done is set out this transect with 30 meters on the top line, and then every 3 meters there's a line going down to the water. So we were out just doing transects and seeing what's there. So they do this every 4 years or so. I haven't heard any results, but here we are just trying to decide whether the little barnacle is a little brown barnacle or an acorn barnacle. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this year's survey compared to the one that was done 4 years ago, because of the warm blob in the summer, and a lot of our marine invertebrates were pretty much fried in their shells. So that's just something else we're keeping an eye on.
Marilyn, can I just interrupt you for a minute? I forgot to ask if you wanted to be interrupted, so sorry if
That's okay.
But Jenny Sutton has put a couple of questions up, maybe that relates to the last topic in the Chain Islands, but are the geese an issue with rare plants or with other birds? And then what are the regulations with landing, not landing on an ecological reserve, and why?
I'd appreciate holding the questions to the end there, Alan, and I will address both of those issues.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so here I got a picture in here of this is a Brandt's cormorant. This is a bird that and Kierman's gull. So both of these birds nest in California and come up here Oh, in the early summer when they're finished nesting. There is a small colony of Brandt's cormorants I found at Mandarty Island about 6 years ago. But there's over 1,000 of these birds that are come up to roost, and they like to hang out down at the south end of the eastern chain. This is the big island at the eastern end of the chain islets. And I was over there one day, we were putting up signs for the reserve, and this whale watching boat came roaring in, and you can see all the cormorants and the gulls are in the air. So one, you know, I'm not sure if you know Trudy Chatwin. She was a seabird biologist working for Ministry of Environment up in Nanaimo, and she did a master's thesis on bird disturbance. And, you know, before there was this sort of arbitrary number out there that you should stay 100 meters away from a seabird colony. Well, Trudy thought that she should do some research and get some scientific data behind it. So that's exactly what she did. And she's come up with for roosting and nesting seabirds, you should give at least a 50-meter buffer. So when you approach, good for kayakers to know that as well, that when you approach roosting birds, you should come in slowly and come in at an angle and stay your 50 meters off the shore, if you can. Somewhere, some areas in there, you're going to be on the rocks if you're 50 meters away. But just as a general rule, just keep that in mind, that that's like a scientific study that's come up with this number. And she wrote an article in the kayaking magazine, I think it's called How Close is Too Close. So you can Google that, or you can even look up her thesis, Trudy Chatwin and bird disturbance. So yeah, so BC Parks is actually working on some sort of compliance with the whale watchers. What the heck is that? Oh, can you see that red thing on the screen?
Yes.
I'm not sure what that is.
Morley has mentioned something, or Morley's name came up there. So Morley, what you doing?
Oh, that's okay. Well, just, yeah, hold your questions to you at the end. That'd be great. Okay, so some of the threats that are faced by these islands, a big one is Canada geese. So, you know, if you've been in the waterfront around Oak Bay, you know there's an awful lot of geese. So we've been working on a project to reduce the number of geese on these islands. This is Jemmy Jones Island. Jemmy Jones Island this year had 13 nests and we added 66 eggs. So the geese are just so terribly invasive. They trample the meadows. Trial Island has had a dickens of a time. On Trial Islands this year, there were 96 nests on the big island and 19 nests on the smaller, or sorry, 38 nests on lesser Trial. Yeah, so they trample down the vegetation and leave the area bare, and it's just a perfect environment for invasive seeds to move in. So this is on Jemmy Jones as well. You can see this little gal's got a beautiful nest here, but you can see the trampling here that started to happen. So, you know, over the years, these are just going to turn into mud holes. Jacques Sirois and Mike Jackson, one of your members, were addling eggs on Jemmy Jones this summer, or this spring, I guess. We go out usually at the end of April and start this project. And the geese on Jemmy Jones Island are quite aggressive. So this isn't a single person's job. You need a couple people around to, one to addle and two to fend off the geese. And it's really interesting because I've addled geese Island before, and Great Chain Island isn't visited very often with the gulls nesting there. It's not a very hospitable place to be. Anyway, so we found the geese on Jemmy Jones Island and Flower Islet, that's just off of Cadbury Bay there, 10 Mile Point, and Staines Island. Those 3 islands, the geese were so aggressive, which kind of indicates that there's a lot of visitation to those islands. Certainly Staines and Flower. So, you know, Canada goose is really long lived. We addle the eggs because if you break the eggs, they'll just relay. And, you know, a goose will sit on these addled eggs for about 3 weeks and then pretty much give up. So, but with a 20-year-old goose that comes back every year, we've got a lot of work ahead of us to keep hold of this. The main people that are doing this addling are from the Guardians of the Mid-Island Estuary Society. They got some funding to come down here, and they did the golf course, and they did Great Chain, and Jacques and Mike and I did Jemmy Jones and Flower and Staines. So, you know, we thought that we got a lot of eggs. So just in this area, there were 120 nests with 677 eggs addled. So that's taking a lot of geese out of the population. But I was really discouraged. I was at a concert at Willows Beach one night, and there must have been 50 geese paddling around in the bay, and then again over on Chatham a few weeks later, similar numbers. So, you know, Chatham and Discovery haven't been done. On Griffin this year, I found only 1 nest. I did see 2 adults fly out of the deep grass there, but I could not find their nest. Anyway, in years previously, Stakea, the wolf that had been frequenting the Chatham and Discovery area, had kept those geese at bay. But now that he's gone, we're it. So I guess the population is going to start increasing over there because Chatham and Discovery haven't been done either. So, and this is a picture from Great Chain Island. We've got a lot of invasive plants over there. We haven't done any work removing invasives here. This is birch roll, which is just a menace, and it's thick over there. And also I noticed a little patch on Jemmy Jones when I was there this summer. So I'm sure a lot of these invasive plants get transferred by geese and gulls, but they also are transferred by people. So you go for a walk on these islands and get furs in your socks and go to another island, and that's the way some of these things are spread. So another threat to our islands, the Friends of Ecological Reserves that I mentioned earlier, 2 of our board members, Mike Fenger and Gary Fletcher, had intervener status for the TMX pipeline hearings, and they put a proposal together and presented it. And you know, that was, I think before we all realized that it was a done deal. The hearings were just for show. So anyway, this picture, there's a tanker going past Griffin and Alpha, and you can't really make it out in this picture, but I thought it just made me laugh because I've been reading about the world-class spill response that the government has set up, and here's a tug with a great big hauser attached to the tanker. So I thought that was our world-class spill prevention, was to have a tug tethered to this tanker. would certainly not do any good at all in rough seas. Anyway, the proposal that Gary and Mike put together was to try and get them to move the tanker route further away from shore. So this is the tanker route as it was planned, and this was the proposed, you know, it's just a dog leg. It wasn't much further out, but yeah, it didn't go over. So we just have to rely on our world-class spill response if that pipeline goes through. And one thing that I found disturbing was on Griffin Island. I found this blob of oil, or a tar ball, I guess it's officially known as. I just put a little short crab carapace on there so you could see how big it was. But we're just, we put some signs up and we're walking along the shore, and it's an odd looking thing. And we'd been out a couple weeks earlier and did a cleanup of some of the plastic pollution on the island, and had taken off a lot of little plastic containers, and I couldn't find a single one to put this blob in. I was going to send it to Justin Trudeau and tell him that this was not acceptable. Anyway, I did report it to the world-class spill response people, and they didn't think it was unusual at all. They weren't the slightest bit interested. So I just ask you guys to keep an eye out there if you ever come across one of these things, to send it to Justin. So now I've just showed you all these beautiful islands, and now I have to tell you that they're closed to the public. Because of the rare plants and the seabirds and the delicate nature of these islands, the Ope Islands Ecological Reserve and Trial Island Ecological Reserve are closed to the public. The Ope Islands Ecological Reserve has a foreshore component as well. So theoretically, you're not supposed to land on any of the beaches from Jemmy Jones, Great Chain Island, Alpha, and Griffin. So, yeah. So, you know, having said that you can't land on the islands, there are other ways that you can help. And we have a couple of citizen science projects going on right now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with iNaturalist, but it's an amazing project that's been set up, and anybody can participate in this. If you've got a camera on your phone or just an old camera, you can take pictures anywhere you are and submit them to iNaturalist. It's a tremendous project. And right now, BC Parks has the iNaturalist program in BC Parks. And so anywhere you go in a park, you can take a picture. If you're online, you can post your picture and get an identification right away quick. Well, within a few minutes anyway. It's just a wonderful thing. So, you know, when you're out paddling around these islands, you can take pictures of kelp, you can take pictures of birds, anything like that, and submit them to, you don't have to do it to the Ope Islands Ecological Reserve. You know, we just go on, Alan put the link in the chat for iNaturalist. It's a tremendous project. And if you got kids or grandkids, get them onto it too. It's a really wonderful way to participate in nature in your backyard and contributing to science. Another thing you can do is contribute bird records to Ebird. The link is also in the chat. So anywhere you are, it doesn't have to be Ope Islands Ecological Reserve. Any of these places around here are hotspots. So, you know, if you're paddling around the waterfront, if you know birds or are interested in knowing more about birds, you can just keep a list, write a little list and submit it to Ebird. And you can go on Ebird and check out what, you know, if you think you've seen I don't know, a dodo, you can post that record and it'll come back and say, no, no, it's not. Anyway, so another really interesting citizen science project. So this is my little boat. If you see me out and about, come by and say hi. I'm often on, well, not often, but I like to go over to Alpha and Griffin and just make sure that people aren't camping or trespassing on the islands. I was disturbed when I was there last that there was a burnt piece of, somebody had had a fire, somebody being on the beach and had a fire. So yeah, and that's one thing that you guys can do. You know, you're out there way more than I am. Just be our eyes out there. Has to be a nice day for me to go out. And I don't tend to go out in the winter, but you know, now that you know a little bit more about these islands and the rules and regulations, that you can pass on that knowledge, you know, help to educate other boaters and kayakers. You know, this COVID has brought out a lot of boats, a lot of paddle boards, and yeah. Anyway, so I just would like you to be aware that your eyes and knowledge are valuable asset to protecting these special areas. So that's all for me. And just thanks for your attention. And I'd like to thank Jacques Sirois and Jenny Fike provided me with some notes on Dr. Kraina, and Sarah Jonis is the area supervisor for BC Parks. And my husband, Phil Lambert, is a big help. He's a co-warden with me for Rope Bay Islands and helps in a lot of other ways as well. So that's all I got.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Marilyn. But before you relax too much, we do have some questions that have accumulated in the chat. I don't know if you can pull that up.
Okay.
I guess starting with Jenny's there about geese, you've addressed it to some extent, and regulations, you may have also addressed that. Then Morley is Morley Eldridge about fire, wondering about fire.
Don't see that question.
It's just below my mention of Trudy Chatwin bird disturbance business.
Anyway, if you can read me the question.
Okay, sure. So yeah, Morley says,
yeah, I see it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay. Has fire been used to control invasive species on these islands? To me, it seems that the separation from private lands would create less of a problem for reinstating the fires used for 10,000 years every summer. So on Griffin Island, I was doing some work with a woman called Brenda Beckwith. She's in at UVic in environmental studies. And she tried to get permission from the fire department to set a fire over there. BC Parks was on board because all these islands have been managed pretty much for millennia by the First Nations people. But they wouldn't go for it. We could not get permission to do that. And we tried for several years to get permission to do it. And it would be so great on Griffin to be able to do that, because one thing I didn't talk about was the Trembling Aspen Grove there. So that Trembling Aspen Grove is unusual in that it's growing on a little maritime island in a maritime meadow. And Trembling Aspen grows by suckering underground. So when I first started going to these islands, many years ago, you could walk through the trails on Griffin. And I think a lot of that had to do with the First Nations burning. I mean, they'd only been gone from those islands for well, they left in 1950. They probably weren't burning them, but you know, less than 50 years. So because they're harvesting the camas in the meadows there, and since fire's been stopped, then those aspen groves have just taken off, and they're going to encroach over the whole island, I'm afraid. So yeah, having fire there would be a good thing, but need somebody with more power than me to be able to do that. I did hear a story once that a couple of fellows that I won't name were out there way in the 70s. They were involved with botanical surveys, and they were paddling their kayaks. They'd gone over there to do some surveys, and they looked at the island and they said, this island needs to be burned. So they dropped a match, jumped in their kayaks, and paddled like mad to get away from it. And a float plane happened to be going by, and the float plane landed and put out their fire. So they were miffed, needless to say. Anyway, yeah, so I was thinking that we might be able to, you know, this is 15 years since we tried originally, so we might just give it a try again. The Oak Bay Fire Department doesn't have a boat, so maybe the Victoria Fire Department can come over there and do a practice on putting out fires on the island. Anyway, sorry, babbling. So what was the next question?
What is addling? How does one addle?
So addling is a way of sterilizing an egg so it won't reproduce. And so you pick it up and you shake it like mad. And that just, well, it like scrambles the egg, so it's not viable.
Yeah. Okay, and then Morley's making a point that geese never used to nest here, apparently.
That's right. Yeah. So the geese that are here now were introduced, oh gosh, in the 70s sometime, I think. And they don't migrate. The geese that are here that come for the winter are, I guess you could call them the native, but these ones now I think they're referring to as native because they're here all the time. But they would come here for the winter and then migrate north in the summer. So we didn't have geese nesting in those times. But since those geese have been introduced, they've made a mess, as you know, of farmers' fields, beaches, little islands like our Oak Bay Islands and Trial Island. Yeah. So it's like the Oak Bay deer. You just need a good cow.
Okay, Jenny's asking about First Nations. Have they been involved with any of this?
First Nations are working on Chatham right now. I was fortunate to be invited to a birthday party of a woman that grew up on Chatham till she was 10 years old. Joan Morris is her name. She's a wonderful Songhees elder. And she had a birthday party over in Chatham in July, and Darcy Matthews, who is he's taken over Nancy Turner. Nancy Turner is a wonderful ethnobotanist in Victoria. Anyway, she retired from UVic, and Darcy Matthews has taken over her spot, and he's doing a dig over there. And it's amazing. He's found continuous habitation for over 1,000 years, and some of those, you know, if you think of Little Chatham, there's a big bay at the south end, and then just there's a grassy meadow up above it, and toward the eastern edge of that meadow, there's rolling. I'm saying hills, but they're not hills. They're like mounds. And yeah, he's doing an excavation there. You can see the shell midden eroding out of the beach there as you go around the corner. But yeah, he's doing some work there and has found that these houses have been, or how he's excavating houses that show over 1,000 years of continuous habitation.
Mhm.
But as far as broom removal, no. Invasive species removal, no. And geese, we're working on that, trying to get them involved.
Okay. Next question I see was Jenny asking, there's part of the trial islands outside the ecological reserve.
Okay, so north and or the lesser trial is ecological reserve, and there are two parts of the reserve on trial, greater trial, and then there's the what do you call it, the radio tower lease.
Yep.
So that's out of the reserve, but it's essentially private property.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've actually visited with the permission of visited the light station with the permission of the
Yeah.
lightkeepers a few times. And so they've given us some those of us who were able to be there,
Yeah,
let us know about that.
that's great. Yeah, Meredith Dickman, did
Yeah.
you have to hear from Meredith? Yeah, okay,
It
so
was Meredith when she was there. I think she's moved on now.
she's gone up to Pine Island,
Yeah.
which is just up at the northeast corner of Vancouver Island. Yeah, and I haven't met the new fellow, the new keeper there. So have you had any interaction with him?
No, I thought probably COVID wasn't a good time to
Yeah. He's
visit
pretty-
anyway, but maybe
pretty
after.
COVID. Yeah, from what I understand, he's pretty COVID leery.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I see Don Scott mentioned there was a fire on Jimmy Chicken Island. I guess fireworks set fire to the island. Wondered if that was ever.
Yeah. That- No, I don't think the result of that was ever studied. Certainly not that I know of anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then does CFAX or the tower owners or renters or whatever they are,
Yeah.
do they help at all in any of this or?
Yeah, so Matt had, because they took the old towers out, they were all guy wired in. So they've taken those ones out and put in freestanding towers. And Matt was able to get quite a bit of money because they had to go over sensitive areas to help alleviate any serious damage to the reserve. But as far as I know, that's all they do. They may come and change the batteries every once in a while, but yeah.
Right. Okay, and then Jenny's just saying not clear whether there's anywhere where kayakers can land at trial outside the.
Okay, so
Not sure about that.
so Trial Island is upland portion. So I believe you can land below the high tide there.
Mhm. My recollection is Meredith told us that, we shouldn't land really anywhere except if we had to. And if we were invited to come and visit, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's party line. But I think you might want to check with BC Parks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think because, the thing that happens is when people are going by and they see a group sitting on beach, it attracts more people. And lesser Trial Island, the little Trial Island, so the northernmost, the little guy. We were over there putting signs up this summer, and there's signs of fire right in the middle there on the dry grass. And I don't know who's doing that. So yeah, it's just trying to keep people away. And I totally understand from the kayaker's point of view that, here's a lovely beach, I want to land on it. But yeah, so you could send a note to BC Parks and get the official word.
Okay.
But, I think Matt and company that are involved with all this work at Trial Island would rather just keep it. So anyway, that's all I'm saying about that.
Okay, thank you. And so we ran through the chat questions. I don't know if anybody has an additional question, you can pipe up now if you do. And if not, then I'm going to ask, and remember, we still have prize draw, but I'm going to ask,
Alan,
yeah,
could I
go
just,
ahead.
it just took me a minute to unmute myself.
Ah.
So Marilyn, thanks very much. I'm the culprit. I'm the culprit that led us to you.
Shocking.
And
That's Jenny.
I'm very involved with the native plant group in town. So I would like you to re-say, if you could, because people don't listen to me, when you said that if people land where they know or think it's legal and it's not ecological reserve on the trial islands, what can happen is other boaters see that people have landed and then more people will land. I think that's what you were saying, but I just wanted you to re-say that.
Yes, so you know yourself, having paddled around that area, how many small boaters there are out there. And now with paddleboarding exploding due to COVID and numerous other things, people see people on the beach and they think they want to go there too. So it just makes a problem bigger. So, does that answer your question?
That totally says what I try to explain to people. Yeah. The other thing that can happen is most people know there's to stay below the high tide line, but if they have to go to the bathroom, they start climbing over logs and up into the bushes, and away we go. So
exactly.
And also then the oyster catchers, they nest on that particular beach.
They do. So the best place to, well, I guess there's two best places in my mind on trial. Mind you, I'm in the motorboat. But so on Big Trial, there's a beach on the east side that has a remnant marine ways, and on the west side is where the boathouse is. And I've seen oyster catchers nesting on both of those beaches, especially on the east side. So yeah, you just need to take care when you're in nature.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Fred. Just
Okay, Alan.
Comments. Sorry, go ahead. Somebody.
No, it's good.
Okay. Fred.
All right. Hi, Marilyn. I really want to thank you for a very interesting and educational talk tonight. I know both Gail and I, and probably almost every single one of the people that have watched your presentation tonight, have been over to those islands for years and years and years and paddled around them. And I know that I'm certainly going to look at them a little differently after tonight. So thank you for sharing what you're doing and the other groups are doing over there. We really appreciate the protection that you're providing for these islands. And to show our appreciation, we have the much sought after mug, Siska mug, and we'll drop it off at your house. We'll make arrangements to do that. Before I send it back to Alan, I'd like to talk a little bit about next month's presentation. And our presenter is going to be Norm Han, who lives in a Esquimalt or up the coast. Anyways, he was one of the first people to get involved with Sept paddling on the West Coast. And he's done two presentations. He's done one for Ocean River before they closed, and another one for Ska, BC. And the one that I hope he's bringing to us next month is the story of he and his partner who paddled across the Salish Sea from West Vancouver down to Victoria. And it was a pretty interesting show. If anybody's interested in learning a little bit about Norm, I've got a very short little clip I would like to play, but I'm going to need to share the screen. So I'm going to do that right now.
Norman is a stand-up paddleboard athlete, environmentalist, and advocate of all things paddling in Great Bear Rainforest. Adopted into the Raven clan of the Gitgat Nation, and has spent many years in expeditions in the Great Bear.
Norman Expeditions is a company that provides the opportunity for people to connect to wild places. One of my favorite wild places is right here in the Great Bear Rainforest. But the Great Bear Rainforest, and specifically Gitgat territory that we're in here right now, it's a very powerful landscape, and it's a very special landscape. You sort of have to be here to feel it, to experience it, and to really understand what it's all about.
There's just so much energy. It's captivating. You can't help but feel the power of this landscape. It's such a rich old landscape that you really do sense it as you're paddling. This is a great way to really see the power of British Columbia.
Anytime you get a chance to spend time with the people of the land, you get a chance to learn a lot about the culture and become quite enlightened as to what this place is all about. And I think you really have to get to know the people of the place to understand the place.
I'll call you too, Norman, if something's out there.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. The Gitgat are people who have been here for, over 10,000 years. They've lived in the same area, so they have a connection to the land that most of us will never understand. And for me, being able to spend time with them and learn from them and learn from their values about the land, about these wild places and the importance and where we actually sit as humans within that food web and within this ecosystem is, they've really taught me quite a bit.
This love of paddling and special relationship with the Gitgat have provided hand with a deeper understanding. His Raven clan name, roughly translated, steersman of the canoe.
The red one, the red one. No, go back to the top. To the top where it says stop share. Right there.
Okay, back over to you, Alan.
Okay, well, thank you. So thanks again, Marilyn. And Marilyn, while that was going on, a couple of people were asking if you're looking for any volunteers. Siska might be able to muster sounds like some volunteers to help remove invasives if you're looking for more volunteers. So I guess I'll leave that with you if you want to follow up.
Sure, that's wonderful, Alan. And the great thing about your group is they have their own transportation.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, looking at starting on bird gerbil removal from Great Chain Island, which is just an easy paddle over there. Or we may start on Jimmy Jones too, just because it's smaller. It's just to get a handle on it. I've got a couple of contacts at UVic to try and come up with some sort of restoration plan. I just look at Great Chain Island and it's such a massive invasive. It's like, where the heck do you start? Just picking away at one thing when there's 2 or 3 others that are needing attention as well. Anyway, but I will keep that in mind. And when we get a work party together, I'll give you a shout. And you can
That'd be great. Yeah, you can use me as a contact. I can fire that out and see if we could get some volunteers. They're probably quite trainable, I suspect.
Yeah.
But you would probably need to provide supervision anyway. So
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Now, I haven't forgotten, Debbie, that we are doing a prize draw. So I'll turn it over to you and Roger, your partner in prizes.
Okay, Roger, do you want to show what we've got?
Well, am I live? Yes. Okay, I'm live here. First thing we have up is a Seattle Sports Sea Rover directional deck compass. It's guaranteed to point west whenever you're looking west. This is prize 1. Prize number 2 is a rescue stirrup. Now these are really handy little things for when you're practicing your rescues and your self-rescue.
Oh, rescue stirrup. He went and got one.
Because of course we don't fall in the water, so you don't really need one of these to rescue people except for yourself when you're practicing. So Debbie, who do we have?
Okay, we have Lori Spooner. Oh,
You-
sorry, Lori Spooner won the prize tonight. So that's a prize package worth valued at $100. So Lori gets both of those and I can email to connect you both.
All right, Lori's there.
Is Lori online?
Thank you.
He was a minute ago.
Yep, yep.
I am.
He's got a cool shot there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you, Lori.
Thank you
Show
very
your
much.
face.
Thank you very much. It's
Oh,
amazing. I can't get my picture to come up, but
Okay, sure.
all right,
Well, I'll
well,
send you a note and you can get in touch with Roger to pick those up.
thank you.
Okay, super.
so Lori's to get in touch with Roger. That's the,
Yeah, I'll organize it. Don't worry.
you'll organize it. All right, good. And congratulations to Lori.
And one last point, Alan.
Yeah,
If anybody has any hints about what they want to win in the next month's draw, tell Debbie Leach to go out and buy it.
Okay.
You might be listening it all the time.
there you go. Any tips for future prizes, contact Debbie. You can see that these two get quite excited about prizes, so we'll
Yeah.
have,
Elevator.
Okay, so director3@siska.ca.
here we go. That's her email address. All right, well, I don't think that we've missed anything out. Again, thanks to Marilyn. Thank you for sharing your time with us and educating us about the ecological reserves. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and happy paddling. You know, tomorrow's a great day to paddle, just saying. Hardly any wind.
That's right.
Morning ebb, afternoon flood. You could probably go to Chatham Discovery there, David. Who knows? You know, I'm sure you could. Some of us are going out to Juan de Fuca, but it's a great day to be anywhere tomorrow around this area. It sounds like a lovely day. So thanks for tuning in. All the best, everybody. We'll sign off. I'll just wait until you've had a chance to wave at everybody. What a friend. You got your hats and all.